I knew I was making a mistake the moment I agreed to have coffee with him. But sometimes the biggest mistakes lead to the most important chapters of your life. My name is Claire, and I'm a 29-year-old archaeologist from Melbourne, Australia. I'd spent 3 years working on excavation sites across Egypt, documenting artifacts and writing research papers that hardly anyone read. I was practical, focused, and completely unprepared for what happened when I met Omar Hassan on a humid September evening at a conference in Cairo. The conference was one of those tedious academic affairs where scholars present findings to audiences of 12 people, half of whom are checking their phones. I was presenting on pottery fragments from the New Kingdom period. Riveting stuff, trust me. But when I finished and asked for questions, one hand went up in the back row. The man who stood was probably in his early 30s, wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that looked expensive even from across the room. He had dark hair, sharp features, and the kind of confidence that made everyone turn to look at him. "Your analysis of the firing techniques was fascinating," he said in flawless English, with just a hint of an Egyptian accent. "But have you considered that the irregularities you noted might not be mistakes at all, but intentional variations to indicate different workshops?" I blinked. No one ever asked me intelligent questions at these things. "That's actually a really good point," I said. "I hadn't considered workshop signatures. Do you have research on that?" He smiled. "Some. Perhaps we could discuss it over coffee after the session. Where are you from? Leave a comment below and tell us." That coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a walk along the Nile. The walk turned into hours of conversation about archaeology, history, art, and everything else under the Cairo sky. By the time he dropped me at my hotel at 2 a.m, I knew 3 things. His name was Omar Hassan. He came from an incredibly wealthy Egyptian family involved in construction and real estate, and I was in serious trouble. We started seeing each other regularly after that. Cairo became less about dusty excavation sites, and more about the places Omar showed me. Private galleries I'd never have accessed on my own. Restaurants where the staff knew him by name and seated us at the best tables. Rooftop lounges where we'd talk until dawn. The city spread out below us like a living museum. Omar was brilliant. He'd studied economics at the American University in Cairo, and then gotten his MBA from London Business School. He spoke 4 languages fluently. He could discuss ancient Egyptian theology with the same ease he discussed modern financial markets. He was also kind, funny, and completely attentive in a way I'd never experienced before. He'd text me good morning every day, often with a photo of something beautiful he'd seen. A sunrise over the pyramids, a flower growing through a crack in old stone, a cat sleeping in a patch of sunlight. He'd show up at my excavation site with cold drinks when the heat was unbearable. He'd listen to me talk about pottery shards for hours without ever seeming bored. I should have known it was too good to be true. We'd been seeing each other for about 2 months when I first noticed the boundaries. Small things at first. He never invited me to his home. When I suggested meeting his friends, he'd deflect. If his phone rang and he saw certain names, he'd excuse himself and take the call in private, switching to rapid Arabic that I couldn't follow. "Omar," I finally said one evening as we sat in a cafe in Zamalek, "is there something you're not telling me?" He looked at me for a long moment, his expression troubled. Then he reached across the table and took my hand. "I care about you very much, Claire. More than I expected to. But my situation is complicated." "What kind of complicated?" I asked, my stomach sinking. "Are you married?" "No," he said quickly. "Nothing like that. It's my family. They have very specific expectations for me. About who I should marry. About the kind of life I should lead. I'm not from the right kind of family," I said, pulling my hand back. "Is that what you're saying?" "It's not about right or wrong," he said. "It's about tradition. My family is very traditional, very connected to Egyptian society and customs. They expect me to marry an Egyptian woman from a similar background, someone they choose, or at least approve of." "So what am I?" I asked. "A temporary distraction? Something to do before you settle into your real life?" He looked genuinely hurt. "You are not a distraction. You are the first person in years who has made me feel like I can be myself, but I cannot pretend that my family's expectations don't exist." "Then tell them about me," I said. "Introduce us. Give them a chance to know me." He shook his head slowly. "It would not work the way you hope. They would not be open to it. My mother especially. She has been planning my marriage since I was a child. There is already a woman she wants me to marry, the daughter of a family friend. It has been understood for years. I felt like I'd been punched." "So you're engaged?" "Not officially," he said. But the expectation is there, the pressure. My mother calls me weekly about it. My father makes comments about continuing the family line. It's constant. We sat in silence for a while, the noise of the cafe buzzing around us. I should probably just go home, I said finally. Back to Australia. This was stupid. We were stupid. Please don't, he said. I know this is not fair to you. I know I am being selfish, but I am not ready to give you up yet. Can we have more time? Just to see where this goes? I should have said no. I should have walked away right then, but I looked at his face, at the genuine emotion there, and I couldn't do it. Okay, I said. More time. That was my first mistake of many. Over the next few months, our relationship deepened despite the impossibility of it. Omar would steal away whenever he could, creating pockets of time where we could be together. We'd explore Cairo's hidden corners. We'd have picnics in Ajar Park. We'd visit museums after hours, using his connections to get private access. He told me more about his family. His father, Mahmoud Hassan, owned one of the largest construction companies in Egypt. They'd built hotels, shopping centers, residential compounds. The family was wealthy in a way I couldn't really comprehend. Multiple properties, drivers, staff, connections to government officials and business leaders across the Middle East. His mother, Layla, came from an equally prominent family. She was elegant, educated, and absolutely determined that her children would maintain the family's status and reputation. Omar had 2 younger sisters, both of whom had married men their parents approved of. The pressure on Omar, as the only son, was immense. They expect me to take over the company someday, Omar explained one evening. My father is 63. He wants to retire, but he will not hand over the business unless he feels confident I am settled. Married to the right woman, producing heirs. That sounds medieval, I said. To you, perhaps, he said, but in my culture it is normal. Family is everything. Individual happiness is less important than family harmony and continuation. That's sad, I said. He looked at me with something like resignation. It is the life I was born into. In December, 3 months into our relationship, I got accepted to lead a new excavation project in Luxor. It was a huge opportunity, but it meant leaving Cairo for at least 4 months. I told Omar, expecting him to be supportive. Instead, he looked devastated. 4 months, he repeated. That is a very long time. It's 500 kilometers, I said. We can visit each other on weekends. But we didn't. The distance, combined with his family obligations, meant we went from seeing each other several times a week to maybe once every 3 weeks. Our relationship became phone calls and text messages, stolen moments of connection across the distance. It was during one of those phone calls in late January that Omar told me his mother had arranged for him to meet Yasmin, the woman she'd chosen for him. I have to go, he said. If I refuse, it will create a huge problem with my family, with Yasmin's family. It will insult everyone involved. So go on a date with your future wife, I said bitterly. Why are you even telling me? Because I do not want to, he said. Because every time I think about meeting her, I feel sick. Because I wish things were different. But they're not different, I said. And wishing doesn't change anything. He went to the meeting. He told me afterwards that Yasmin was nice, educated, from a good family, everything his mother wanted, and completely wrong for him. She spent the entire lunch talking about fashion and her friends' weddings, he said. She had no interest in anything I care about. We have nothing in common except our family's expectations. But you'll marry her anyway, I said, because that's what's expected. I do not know, he said quietly. I do not know what I am going to do. In March, I finished the Luxor project early and returned to Cairo. I surprised Omar by showing up at one of his construction sites. He was in a meeting, but when his assistant told him I was there, he came out immediately, his face lighting up in a way that made my heart hurt. You came back, he said. I came back. I agreed. That evening, we went to his favorite spot, a quiet corner of Islamic Cairo where tourists rarely ventured. We sat on old stone steps, watching the sun set over ancient buildings, and I decided to be honest. Omar, I can't keep doing this, I said. I love you. I'm completely in love with you. But this half-relationship where I'm your secret, where we have no future, it's destroying me. He took my hand, his expression anguished. I love you too, so much, but I do not know how to fix this. Introduce me to your family, I said. Let me meet them. Let them see that I'm serious about you, that I respect your culture, that I'm willing to try. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, He nodded. Okay. I will talk to my mother. I will try to make her understand. But when he talked to her, it went exactly as badly as he'd feared. According to Omar, Layla had been furious. She'd accused him of dishonoring the family, of being influenced by Western ideas, of forgetting who he was and where he came from. She'd cried, she'd shouted, she'd told him that if he continued this relationship, he would break her heart. She refuses to meet you, Omar told me after, looking exhausted. She says there is no point. She says I am wasting time I should be spending building a proper relationship with Yasmin. What about your father? I asked. My father does whatever my mother wants, he said. He has learned over 40 years of marriage that it is easier that way. So that's it? I asked. Your mother says no, and we just give up? He looked at me with such sadness. What choice do I have? If I defy them, they will cut me off. Not just financially, though that is also true. They will remove me from the family business. They will turn my sisters against me. They will make me choose between you and everything I have ever known. I'm not asking you to choose, I said, even though I was. I'm just asking for a chance. Over the next several weeks, I tried everything I could think of to make this work. I studied Arabic intensively, practicing for hours every day. I read about Egyptian culture, about Islam, about family dynamics in conservative Middle Eastern societies. I bought modest clothing, covering my arms and legs even in the brutal Cairo heat. I reached out to Egyptian colleagues, asking for advice on how to approach Omar's family. One colleague, a woman named Miriam who had married a foreigner herself, was blunt with me. Claire, you need to understand something, she said over tea in her apartment. Egyptian families, especially wealthy traditional families like Omar's, they do not just marry individuals. They marry families. They marry status. They marry expectations. You are an outsider in every way that matters to them. You are foreign. You are not Muslim. You do not come from wealth or connections. No matter how much you try to adapt, you will always be seen as inappropriate. So there's no hope? I asked. She shrugged. There is always hope, but it requires Omar to be willing to fight for you, to risk everything, to choose you over his family's approval. And very few men from that background are willing to do that. She was right. As April turned into May, I could feel Omar pulling away. Not emotionally. He still said he loved me, but practically. He was taking more business meetings, spending more time with his family, making excuses for why he couldn't see me. Finally, in mid-May, almost 7 months after we'd started dating, he came to my apartment late at night. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. I need to tell you something, he said. My heart sank. You're engaged to her. Not yet, he said. But my mother has planned an engagement party for the end of June. She invited 300 people. Both families are involved. Everyone is expecting it to happen. And you're going to let it happen, I said. He sat down heavily on my couch, his head in his hands. I do not want to. I want to be with you, but the pressure is unbearable. My mother calls me crying every day. My father has warned me that if I embarrass the family by refusing, I will lose my position in the company. My sisters have been recruited to guilt me. Everyone has an opinion on what I should do. And what do you want to do? I asked. He looked up at me, and there were tears in his eyes. I want to be with you, but I do not know how to make that choice without destroying everything else in my life. I sat down next to him and took his hand. Omar, I can't make this decision for you, but I also can't keep waiting while you figure it out. I love you, but I need someone who is willing to fight for me, who chooses me, not because it's easy, but because they can't imagine their life without me. I choose you, he said. In my heart, I have already chosen you. But choosing in your heart isn't enough, I said. You need to choose in your actions, in your life. We talked for hours that night, going in circles, finding no solutions. By dawn, we were both exhausted and no closer to an answer. I should go, he finally said. I have a meeting in 2 hours. He left, and I watched the sun rise over Cairo through my apartment window, feeling like something essential had broken. Over the next 2 weeks, Omar tried to find a middle way. He talked to his father about postponing the engagement. He tried to reason with his mother. He even consulted with a religious scholar about the permissibility of marrying a non-Muslim woman, hoping to find some Islamic justification that would satisfy his family. Nothing worked. His father told him to stop being ridiculous. His mother threatened to have a heart attack from the stress. The religious scholar gave a complicated answer about marriage being permissible, but not advisable given his family situation. In early June, 3 weeks before the planned engagement party, I made a decision. I called Omar and asked him to meet me at that same spot in Islamic Cairo, where we'd had so many important conversations. When he arrived, I could see he already knew what I was going to say. "I can't do this anymore," I told him. "I can't be your secret while you plan a future with someone else. It's killing me." "Please," he said, "just give me a little more time. I am trying to find a way." "You've had 7 months," I said. "Either you're willing to stand up to your family, or you're not, and I think we both know the answer." He looked at me with such pain. "You are asking me to choose between the woman I love and everything I have ever known, between you and my family, my culture, my entire life. I'm not asking you to choose," I said. "You're the one creating that choice. You're the one who can't imagine a life where you have both." "Because I cannot have both," he said. "My family will never accept you, and if I choose you, I lose them." I stood up, tears streaming down my face. "Then I guess you've made your choice." "Claire, please," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "I'm going back to Australia," I said. "My visa runs out in 6 weeks anyway. I'll finish my current project, and then I'll go home. Please don't contact me unless you've actually made a real decision." I walked away from him then, through those ancient streets, and I didn't look back. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. The next 3 weeks were torture. I threw myself into work, spending 12-hour days at excavation sites, writing reports late into the night, anything to avoid thinking about Omar. My colleagues noticed, but wisely said nothing. Omar respected my request not to contact me, which somehow hurt even more. Part of me had hoped he'd show up, declare his love, tell me he'd chosen me, but he didn't. Then, 1 week before his engagement party, my phone rang at 3 a.m. It was Omar. "Claire," he said, his voice rough. "I am sorry to call so late. I need to talk to you." "I'm listening," I said, sitting up in bed. "I told my parents I will not marry Yasmin," he said. "I told them I cannot go through with the engagement. They are very angry. My mother is not speaking to me. My father says I am making the biggest mistake of my life." My heart started racing. "What does that mean?" "It means I am choosing you," he said. "I do not know what comes next. I do not know if my family will ever forgive me or accept you, but I cannot marry someone I do not love when the person I do love is you." I started crying. "Are you sure? Because if you do this and then change your mind later, I won't survive it." "I am sure," he said. "I should have been sure months ago. I am sorry it took me so long." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now I need to cancel a party for 300 people, he said, and I could hear a hint of humor in his voice. "And then I need to figure out how to introduce my family to the most stubborn Australian archaeologist I have ever met." I laughed through my tears. "They're not going to like me. Probably not at first," he agreed. "But they will learn to, because I am not giving up on either you or them. Somehow, we will make this work." Omar canceled the engagement party. According to him, it was one of the worst experiences of his life. He had to call Yasmin's family personally to apologize. He had to face the fury of his mother, who didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. He had to endure his father's disappointment and his sister's confusion. The social fallout was immediate and intense. People talked. Gossip spread through Cairo's elite social circles. The Hassan family, always so proper, so traditional, now had a scandal. But Omar stood firm. And slowly, very slowly, things began to shift. His father was the first to soften. Mahmoud Hassan was a businessman above all else, and he recognized determination when he saw it. If Omar was willing to risk everything for me, then perhaps I was worth meeting. The invitation came in mid-June, delivered via a formal phone call from Omar. "My father wants to meet you," he said. "Just him, not my mother yet. She is still very upset." "When?" I asked, my stomach churning. "Tomorrow if you are free." He suggested lunch at the Marriott in Zamalek, neutral territory. I spent that entire evening preparing. I wore my most conservative outfit, a long-sleeved navy dress that covered everything. I practiced Arabic greetings until my accent was as good as I could make it. I read up on Egyptian business culture, on proper etiquette for meeting elders, on everything I could think of that might help. The next day, Omar picked me up, and we drove to the hotel in tense silence. "You will be fine," he kept saying, though I wasn't sure if he was reassuring me or himself. Mahmoud Hassan was waiting in the restaurant, a distinguished man in his early 60s with silver hair and Omar's same sharp features. He stood when we approached, his expression unreadable. Ahlan wa sahlan, I said in careful Arabic. It is an honor to meet you, sir. He raised an eyebrow slightly, then responded in English. Please, sit. The lunch was formal and slightly awkward. Mahmoud asked about my work, my family, my background. He wanted to know about my education, my career plans, my understanding of Egyptian culture. Every question felt like a test, but I answered honestly. I told him about growing up in Melbourne, about how I'd fallen in love with ancient Egypt as a child, about my years of study and work. I told him I understood his concerns about cultural differences, but that I was committed to learning and adapting. You understand that my son comes from a very specific background, Mahmoud said. Our family has certain expectations, certain standards that must be maintained. I understand, sir, I said, and I respect that. I'm not asking Omar to abandon his family or his culture. I'm just asking for a chance to be part of it. Mahmoud was quiet for a moment, studying me. Then he said something that surprised me. My son has never defied me before, not once in 33 years. He is respectful, obedient, dutiful. For him to stand up to his mother and me the way he did, you must be very important to him. He is very important to me as well, I said. Mahmoud nodded slowly. I will not say I am happy about this situation. I am not. But I have spent my life building businesses, making deals, understanding people, and I can see that you are sincere, so I will give you a chance. But you should know that my wife will not be as reasonable as I am being now. He was right. Layla Hassan refused to meet me for months. She stayed furious with Omar, communicating with him only when absolutely necessary for family or business matters. His sisters, caught between their mother and brother, tried to stay neutral, but it was clearly difficult for them. Omar's defiance came at a cost. He was still working at the family company, but his father started giving him less important projects, testing to see if he was serious about staying or if he'd quit in frustration. Some of his friends pulled away, uncomfortable with the scandal, or pressured by their own families to distance themselves. The social invitations dried up, but Omar didn't waver. We moved forward, building our relationship in the face of all that opposition. In July, I extended my visa and found a new research position with the American University in Cairo. Omar helped me find an apartment in Garden City, close to the university, but also close to him. We started building a real life together, not just stolen moments. I continued studying Arabic intensively. Omar's friend, a patient teacher named Hassan, tutored me several times a week. I wanted to be able to communicate with Omar's family in their own language, to show them I was serious about integration. I also started learning about Islam. Not to convert. Omar never asked that of me, but to understand. I read the Quran with English translation. I talked to Muslim colleagues about their faith. I learned about Ramadan, about prayer times, about the cultural practices that shaped Omar's worldview. He noticed. One evening in August, after I'd successfully ordered dinner in Arabic without his help, he smiled at me in that way that made my heart skip. You are trying very hard, he said. Of course I am, I replied. This is important to you, so it's important to me. Not many people would do what you are doing, he said, learning a difficult language, trying to understand a culture that is not yours, accepting the situation with my family with such patience. I love you, I said simply. That makes it worth it. In September, 9 months after our first meeting, something shifted with Omar's family. His youngest sister, Salma, reached out. She invited us for coffee, just the three of us, away from their mother's scrutiny. Salma was 26, smart, and surprisingly progressive. She worked as a marketing director for a luxury hotel chain. Over coffee, she was direct. I need to meet the woman my brother has risked everything for, she said, studying me. The woman who made him cancel an engagement party and stand up to our mother. We talked for 2 hours. I told her about my work, about how Omar and I met, about my efforts to learn Arabic and understand their culture. She asked pointed questions, testing me, but not unkindly. At the end, she said something I'll never forget. My mother thinks you are trying to take Omar away from us, to make him abandon his family and become Western, but I can see that is not what you are doing. You are trying to join us, not steal him away. Yes, I said. Exactly. That will help, she said. When the time is right, I will talk to our mother, but you need to be patient. She is very stubborn. I'm discovering that stubbornness runs in your family, I said with a smile. Salma laughed. Yes, Omar clearly chose someone who can match him. Through Salma, I gradually met Omar's other sister, Noor. She was more reserved than Salma, more traditional, but she was polite. Both sisters started including us in occasional family events, small gatherings where their mother wouldn't be present. I also met Omar's extended family during this time, aunts and uncles and cousins. The reactions were mixed. Some were welcoming, curious about the Australian woman who had captured Omar's heart. Others were cold, clearly disapproving. But I showed up, was respectful, tried my best with Arabic, and slowly some of them started to warm to me. In October, Omar and I had been together for over a year. My Arabic had improved significantly. I could have full conversations, understand most of what was said around me, even catch jokes sometimes. I'd made friends in Cairo, both expats and Egyptians. I'd published 2 well-received papers on my research. I was building a life here, not just waiting for Omar's family to accept me. One evening, Omar came to my apartment looking thoughtful. "My father wants to have dinner with us," he said. "Both of us. He says he has something to discuss." The dinner was at an upscale restaurant in Mahdi. Mahmoud was cordial, asking about my work, complimenting my Arabic. Then, over dessert, he got to the point. "Claire, I have been observing you for several months now," he said. "I will be honest. I still have concerns about this relationship. Cultural differences are not easy things, but I can see that you are sincere in your efforts, and I can see that my son is happier than he has been in years." "Thank you, sir," I said carefully. "I have talked to my wife," he continued, "extensively. She is still very upset with Omar, but I have convinced her to meet you. Once. She has agreed to have tea at our home next Friday. Will you come?" My heart was pounding. Yes, of course. I would be honored. That week was one of the longest of my life. Omar tried to prepare me for his mother. "She will be cold," he warned. "Possibly hostile. She will test you. She will try to find reasons to disapprove. Do not take it personally." On Friday afternoon, I dressed in my most modest outfit, covered my hair with a light scarf out of respect, and practiced my Arabic greetings one more time. Omar picked me up, and we drove to his family's home in Heliopolis, a beautiful villa behind high walls. Inside, the house was elegant, all marble floors and antique furniture. Omar led me to a sitting room where his mother was waiting. Layla Hassan was a striking woman in her late 50s, wearing an expensive hijab and traditional but fashionable clothing. She looked at me with eyes that were assessing and not warm. "Assalamu alaikum," I said, bowing slightly. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Mrs. Hassan. It is a great honor," she responded in Arabic, speaking quickly. Omar started to translate, but she held up a hand. "I want to hear if she understands," Layla said in English. I'd understood most of what she said. She'd asked why I thought I was suitable for her son. "I know I am not what you hoped for," I said in careful Arabic. "I am foreign. I do not come from your culture or your religion, but I love your son very much. I respect your family. I am trying to learn your language and understand your ways. I do not want to take Omar from you. I want to be part of your family." Layla's expression didn't soften. She switched to English. "You say you want to be part of our family, but you do not understand what that means. Family is not something you join easily. It is blood, history, tradition. You will always be an outsider." The words stung, but I kept my composure. "Perhaps I will always be somewhat outside," I said, "but I hope that over time, with patience and respect, I can find a place at the edge. I cannot change where I come from, but I can show through my actions who I am. Words are easy," she said. "Actions are what matter." The tea was tense and uncomfortable. Layla asked difficult questions about my family, my background, my intentions. She made clear her disappointment in Omar's choice. She spoke about the shame he had brought on the family by canceling the engagement. She talked about Yasmin, about what a good daughter-in-law she would have been. I listened, answered respectfully, and didn't argue. There was no point. She needed to express her feelings, and I needed to show I could endure them with grace. By the end of the visit, Layla hadn't warmed to me, but she also hadn't thrown me out. As we left, she said something to Omar in rapid Arabic. He nodded, looking surprised. "What did she say?" I asked once we were in the car. "She said you have good manners," he replied. For her, that is high praise. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a start. Over the following months, Layla slowly, grudgingly, began to tolerate my presence. Omar would bring me to family dinners occasionally. His mother would be polite but distant. She'd speak to me in Arabic, testing my comprehension. She'd ask about my work with what seemed like genuine interest, but also continued skepticism. I kept showing up, kept trying, kept learning. In December, Omar and I had been together for 15 months. It was during a family dinner that Layla did something unexpected. We were all sitting around the table, Omar's sisters and their husbands, his parents, and me. The conversation was flowing in Arabic, and I was following along reasonably well. Then Layla said something, and everyone looked at me. I'd missed it. The words had come too fast. "I am sorry," I said in Arabic. "Could you please repeat that?" Layla sighed, but repeated more slowly. She'd asked if I was planning to stay in Egypt, or if I would take Omar to Australia. I looked at Omar, then back at her. "That is something Omar and I will decide together," I said. "I love Egypt. My work is here. But I also love my family in Australia. We will need to find a balance, visiting both places. I would never ask him to abandon his home, just as I hope he would not ask me to abandon mine." It was the right answer. Layla nodded slightly, and I saw something in her eyes that might have been grudging respect. By early 2025, almost 18 months after Omar and I met, things had settled into a new normal. His family still wasn't thrilled about our relationship, but they'd accepted that it was happening. His mother was civil to me, occasionally even kind. His father had given Omar back his important projects at work. His sisters treated me like part of the family. In February, Omar proposed, not with a big romantic gesture, but quietly, in my apartment. As we were cooking dinner together, "I want to marry you," he said. "I know it has been difficult. I know my family has made this harder than it needed to be, but I want you to be my wife, officially, legally, in every way that matters." I said yes without hesitation. The wedding planning was complicated. Omar's family wanted a traditional Egyptian wedding, large and formal. My family wanted to be involved but couldn't understand all the customs. We had to navigate religious requirements since I wasn't Muslim. Omar needed to get special permission for us to marry. We had to deal with visa issues and legal paperwork across 2 countries, but we did it. In April 2025, almost exactly 2 years after we met, we got married. The ceremony was a blend of cultures. We had both a civil ceremony to satisfy legal requirements and a modified Islamic ceremony at a mosque, with a sheikh who was willing to officiate for a mixed-faith couple. Omar's entire family attended. Even Layla, who wore a beautiful traditional dress and managed to smile at me several times. My parents flew in from Melbourne, confused by the customs, but doing their best to be supportive. At the reception, held at a beautiful hotel on the Nile, I watched Omar talking to his father, both of them laughing at something. I saw my mother chatting with Salma, using hand gestures to overcome the language barrier. I saw people from 2 completely different worlds trying to come together, and mostly succeeding. Layla approached me during the reception, which surprised me. She looked at me for a long moment, then spoke in careful English. "You have been patient with us," she said. "With me, especially. I have not made this easy for you. You were protecting your son," I said. "I understand that." She shook her head slightly. I was being stubborn, clinging to expectations that no longer fit. "Omar is happy with you. I can see that. And you have tried very hard to respect our family and our ways. That matters." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. "That means everything to me." She reached out and briefly touched my hand. "Welcome to our family, Claire. Truly." I had tears in my eyes as she walked away. Now, 6 months after our wedding, I can say that life is good. Not perfect. There are still cultural misunderstandings. Still moments when I feel like an outsider. Still times when Omar's family says or does things that confuse or frustrate me. But we're building something real. A marriage that spans cultures. A family that's learning to embrace difference. A life that's richer for including both Egyptian and Australian traditions. I'm still doing research, now as an associate professor at the American University. Omar is thriving at his father's company, bringing in new ideas while respecting traditional ways of doing business. We're talking about having children someday, though we both agree we want to wait a few more years to get fully settled. We split our time between Cairo and Melbourne now, spending about 8 months a year in Egypt and 4 months in Australia. It's not easy, constantly moving between 2 homes, 2 cultures, 2 families, but it works for us. Layla still challenges me sometimes. She makes comments about when we'll have children, about how I should dress, about whether I'm supporting Omar properly, but there's affection beneath it now. She calls me weekly to check in. She invites me to family events without Omar having to ask. She's teaching me to cook Egyptian dishes, patiently correcting my mistakes. Omar's father has become an unlikely ally. Mahmoud respects hard work and dedication, and he's seen how much effort I've put into building bridges. He includes me in business discussions sometimes, values my outsider perspective. He tells Omar regularly that he chose well, that I'm good for him. The sisters are now genuine friends. Salma and I meet for coffee regularly. Noor invites us to her children's birthday parties and school events. They include me in their group chats, send me memes I don't always understand but appreciate anyway. Is it what I imagined when I first came to Egypt? No. It's harder, more complicated, more demanding than I ever expected. Loving someone from a different culture means constant negotiation, constant learning, constant adjustment, but it's also richer than I imagined. I've gained a second language, a second culture, a second family. I've learned that love isn't just about the easy moments. It's about showing up, even when it's difficult. It's about respecting differences while finding common ground. It's about patience, persistence, and believing that some things are worth fighting for. Omar still brings me coffee every morning, now in our shared apartment. He still texts me photos of beautiful things he sees. He still listens to me talk about pottery fragments for hours. But now we have something more. We have a foundation built on 2 years of choosing each other. Every single day, even when it was hard. Last week, Layla did something that surprised me. She gave me a necklace that had belonged to Omar's grandmother. She placed it around my neck herself, her hands gentle. "This has been in our family for 3 generations," she said. "It goes to the women who marry Hassan men. It is yours now." I was so moved I could barely speak. "Thank you," I finally managed. "I will treasure it." She smiled at me, a real smile, warm and genuine. "You have become part of our family, Claire. Not just in name, but truly. I am glad Omar found you." Those words meant everything, because they meant the battle was over. Not because I'd won, but because we'd all realized there didn't need to be a battle at all. There was room for everyone, room for tradition and change, room for Egyptian culture and Australian openness, room for a stubborn mother and an equally stubborn daughter-in-law to find their way to mutual respect. Is every day easy? No. Do we still have challenges? Absolutely. Will there always be moments when cultural differences create friction? Of course, but we face them together. Omar and me, his family and mine, old traditions and new possibilities, all woven together into something unique and beautiful. When people ask me if it was worth it, all the struggle and pain and uncertainty, I think about that first coffee in Cairo, that conversation about pottery fragments that turned into something so much more. I think about Omar's face when he sees me. I think about Layla's grudging approval becoming genuine affection. I think about my life now, split between 2 countries, enriched by 2 cultures. And I say yes, every difficult moment, every tear, every test of patience and commitment. It was all worth it, because some loves are worth crossing oceans for, worth learning new languages for, worth standing firm against opposition for. Ours was, ours is, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to bridge cultures in your relationship? Have you ever had to win over a family that didn't initially accept you? How did you navigate those challenges? Share your experiences below. And if my journey resonated with you, please give this video a like, share it with someone who might relate to my story, and subscribe to the channel for more stories about love that crosses borders and breaks barriers. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story about the complicated, beautiful reality of cross-cultural relationships. Thank you for listening to my journey.